everyone. This is Nique and Ress, and this is She Wolf Alchemy. Today we are talking about manifestation.
Yes. So in regards to manifestation, really, I think we're going to get into manifestation, but also just the mindset behind manifestation in general. One of the things I noticed when I really started looking into manifestation a few years ago was like, honestly, it's concepts that's already put into everyday psychology, everyday religion, but we don't call it that. And it's just adding them all together and now calling it a thing.
Yeah, because like when I was younger, I definitely did not hear about this at all, or little to none. When I was like, but now since I have become older, it's like it just came out of nowhere, kind of.
Yeah, well, I think a big part of that is like our generation is a generation that grew up with the internet. Like we grew up before the internet was huge, but then we were also there when it started becoming huge, and now we're there at a time where it's a part of your everyday life. And I think because when we were first little, it wasn't huge, so you knew what was in your hometown. You knew about religion that your parents talked about. And I think with the booming of social media, different people were able to put out different things that they were doing, and things that were more popular on the other side of the world, and then different things picked up speed and took off. Because there's a book on manifestation like all the way back like hundreds of years ago. But it's like, that was that side of the world, that was those people, those particular folks. And then
there was no way to like communicate that nationwide back then.
Yeah. And now it's like if you have an idea, you can put it out into the world and it can go viral, and next thing you know, it's a part of everybody's everyday life 5 years from now. So essentially, when we're talking about manifesting, we're talking about the ability to really have your thoughts, your feelings, and your beliefs, controlling them to create an outcome in your physical world, essentially. So when it comes to manifesting, I feel like it's something that I definitely unconsciously did when I was younger. But it wasn't really like I was purposely trying to manifest stuff. It was just, I'm a daydreamer. So I love being able to just be like, you know what? One day I'm going to be so rich and it's going to be so awesome. And like just thinking about it, and not even just thinking about it, because manifestation is so much more than thinking about it. But I've always been when I think about it, I feel that.
Yeah.
Like I feel it in me when I think about stuff. Which is bad, because when I'm not having a good day and I'm not having good thoughts, I feel it.
Yeah, to the max. Yeah. I think the same with me. I didn't know that's what I was doing, but like I would daydream. Like even going off to college, my mom promoted HBCUs, and she took us to all these different places. So I would have like a goal in mind, or I would daydream about being at college, being at a black college, and all the stuff you could do. But I had to, and then you know how you manifest. You just think about it, and then it comes to fruition. Like, this is mine. So I was like, I'm gonna go to this school. I'm gonna be like, I don't know. I had like daydreamed about it.
Yeah.
And then when I finally got there, I was like, oh, I really made this happen. I'm at a HBCU. I'm loving it, and it was everything that I dreamed of. But I was thinking about that since I was a child.
Yeah.
So I guess it could be a manifestation, daydreaming about it too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's definitely me. As a child, I was definitely someone who visualized things. I was definitely someone who meditated without knowing that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Because I think I've talked about this in our episodes several times. Like, I shut down when I get overwhelmed, when I get too stressed. And so a lot of times, and I disassociate a lot. That's a big part. Did you get that post I sent you?
The one, no, I didn't read that one yet.
Okay. So, sidebar, but there is this woman, oh my gosh, I don't remember her name. I post her stuff all the time on our page though. But she has this like book about self-healing or whatever. And one of the things she posted today was about disassociation. And she was like, people use disassociation, they think of it in a more magical terms, like someone literally just physically, emotionally blank out. And she was like, but a lot of times she was talking about how, like, for some people, disassociation is when you talk to them now and you're like, oh, tell me about your childhood. And you're like, girl, I don't remember nothing about my childhood. And that's a thing for me. Like, whenever me and you talk, I'm like, girl, I don't know. I don't remember my childhood. I don't know why I don't remember my childhood, but I don't. There's very little things that come in and out. Someone will say something and a memory come up, but on an everyday average, I don't have no idea what happened in my childhood. But she talks about it in her post, and she goes, yeah, that's a part of disassociation. And she was like, and you have to understand, when you grow up with that, she was saying, like, you become good at disassociating, where you know when to respond, you know how to act like you're checked in and so forth. She's like, but the thing is, later when people come back and talk to you about it, you have no idea what people are talking about, and it's like you're not there. And she was talking about how it's a common thing for people who disassociate, that people commonly are like, yeah, they have bad memory, and you'll constantly talk to these people. And she was like, and it'll be a running joke among your friend group, like they have bad memory, because you guys will bring up a memory, and either their memory is so far different that you're like, that's not what are you talking about? Or they just completely don't remember things that you guys remember. And you're like, how? You were there. You were actively involved.
You're disassociated,
yeah. And they're like, no, because you are a disassociator. And they're like, and there's lots of parts in your life where, like, people will recall and retell you these stories, and it was like you weren't even there. And you're just like, fascinating.
That has happened,
Yeah. And that's a huge thing. Even with recently, there's a guy who I like recently got in contact with, and I remember like telling you, and then being like, yeah, we were talking, and he was reminding me of this and that. Girl, I don't remember this happening. You're like, Cress, that was definitely a thing. And I was like, what? And then you were able to better tell me about my dating experience with this person than I remember.
Yeah, I remember him well.
Yes, and in my head, guys, you don't understand. When I was talking to me, she was going back and telling me memories and feelings, and she's like, yeah, because you did this, and you really, really liked him. And in my head, this was someone I had dated casually for like a couple of weeks, and she was like, Chris, he was a whole thing.
Yeah, and it was definitely more than a couple of weeks.
In my head,
because I would ask about him often, and it was a thing. Yeah.
So when I was reading that post, and I'll repost it for you guys, but it like blew my mind, because that's always a thing. And I already knew I disassociated, but having her break that down, it completely blew my mind. But anyways, I said all that to say, because I disassociate so much, a lot of times as a kid, I had to meditate to zone back in. And I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I didn't realize meditation was what it was called. I just knew that sometimes I would disassociate, and I would just come back, and people are talking, and I'm like, oh shoot, they having a whole conversation around me. And I could not.
But you days off though.
Sometimes. I know. I be disassociated.
I just look at you and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to get up and go now.
Oh, girl, you should see me at meetings. I remember one time I was in this meeting, and everybody just got so, I don't know what happened. I don't know. I wasn't there mentally. I have no idea what happened. But all I know is by the time I zoned back in, everybody was just looking at me. And I was like, oh, it must be my time to talk. And I was like, yeah. So like, the stuff be stuffing, right? And so like, and my boss just grabbed my hand underneath the table and just spoke for me. This was a few years ago. This is like when one of my first jobs in Atlanta. And she just talked for me, and I just remember like looking around the table, and it was like 20 professionals. My job is highly even back then, highly interdisciplinary, so it's not just mental health. I've always been in jobs where it's mental health, it's the police, it's policymakers, it's people that work at the jail, it's lawyers, it's always been like a huge group of various fields in meetings with us. And I remember looking up, and all of them were like, so what was that? Like, everybody looked very concerned. Like, everybody looked at me and was just like, so what was that? Like, where was she? Because she clearly was like zoned out, and we don't know what just happened. But yeah, so that's like one of the things I had to do. Like, whenever I zone out, when I come back, I always have to kind of, to bring myself back to full awareness, I'm always just like, kind of what I told you guys last time, I have to do grounding work. I'm like, okay, my feet is preferring me on the floor. I can feel this chair underneath me, and I have to go through all my senses. And then I have to do breathing. And then I'm like, okay. And back to reality.
But how did that look like as a child?
So as a child, I don't remember my childhood.
Oh yeah,
you're trying to get me to say specific stories, but no, I remember one specific incident. And also, let me just say, because we did have one message in our DMs. Do not worry about me. I was not like abused or anything as a child.
Oh wow.
Because people are always just like, I feel like we're concerned. No, it was never that. I had an amazing parenthood and so forth. There was just a lot of high stress emotional situations. I had a brother that died very early in his life. I had, so it was just a lot of situations like that going on when I was a child. So don't worry about me. I wasn't abused, nothing like that. I have amazing, loving, great parents. In my childhood, there was a lot of stuff like that going on. And so, it created, certain things that, as a child, you develop certain things to just cope and deal with.
Yeah.
But in one particular situation, I remember I was staying with a family member. We were out of town. We were staying with this family member. Kind of out of that like cousin loyalty, you don't tell your parents certain stuff because you're like, that's my cousin. Like if I tell, this is gonna create a whole thing. So my parents had allowed me to stay with a family member who I shouldn't have been staying with. They had a lot of extra stuff going on, but I felt there was no way for me to be like, hey, her dude is a like hood as hell. He like to bring hood shit to her home, and I don't feel safe there.
Right.
I didn't feel comfortable saying that because that was gonna get her into a whole situation. So I didn't say anything. I let my mom drop me off there. My mom thought, everything was fine. We was gonna be reading the Bible or whatever. And I remember like I had a situation where like her dude came in the house with guns. Okay? Keep in mind, like, this is not what we grew up around. Like, we didn't grow up in hood situations. We don't, like, this is not our norm. And he was, like, yelling at her, whatever, but he made it very known. Like, he didn't point a gun or anything at us, but, like, he made it very known he had guns on him. He, like, made it very known, like, I'm trying to be intimidating. And I remember, like, I don't know what happened between them. I think they were arguing, whatever, but I went to a whole other place. And all I remember is like my cousin sitting there talking to me and was like, I don't know what she was talking about. I don't know. But I remember looking at her and not being able to focus on what she was saying. And I was just like, yo, where did he go? What happened? Like, it was like I missed the whole fight. And I remember like being kind of as she was talking and me doing deep breathing and me being like, in, out. And I remember just focusing like on my breathing. So for me, when I was a child, a big part of meditation for me was focusing on my breathing when I could not calm myself.
Yeah.
And to bring my mind to a stillness. That was a big part of what I would do. So for as a child, that was it.
Yeah, it was good you found that.
Yeah. And I don't know where it came from. Like, I don't remember anybody ever teaching me that. I just remember that being a thing for me when I was younger. And like you said, visualization, just really using our imagination.
Yeah.
And being either understimulated or whatever, and just kind of creating this whole inner world where it was like, yes, one day, I'm going to go to college and I'm gonna get my master's and I'm gonna, and just, it's something that's always been in me since I was like 7. Like, this is what it's gonna look like, and this is how old I'm gonna be when I graduate, and this is how. And as a child, I just remember doing that. Now, as an adult, of course, it's way more intentional and it's with a lot more goal setting.
Yeah.
Now, so do you like actively work on like visualizing goals and like trying to use the law of attraction and so forth right now in your everyday life?
Right now, I'm not really, but I have in the past. I try to get back to like the manifestation or just the law of attraction. They're saying, I'm going to get that, I'm going to get that. So I always start by like writing stuff down and taking those baby steps to get there. And I think that's like my goal set, like just checking and looking over this list every now and then to see if I'm going in that right direction.
But wait, what about your house? Because I promise you were like, I think I'm gonna get a house. I really want to buy a house. You said that this summer, and then next thing I know, I didn't hear nothing about it. And you're like, hey, oh, by the way, I got a house. And I was like, what? Because you snuck it on me. You didn't say nothing during none of the process. You were just like, by the way,
I just like was focused. I guess so. But that was just like a fast one. Like, I mean, it could happen that fast, I guess. I just visualized it. Like, I was like, I can't be here next year. I can't do this anymore. Then I didn't really like my neighbors. I didn't like where I was. So I was like, I'm going to do something. Like, I'm going to do something to change my circumstance.
Yeah.
And it was a visualization of that too. Just visualizing me being not by these neighbors and not in this area and not having to pay rent. Yeah. So, and I guess that was my drive and my push to get up and do it. Cause like literally I didn't have a plan when I went to go get the pre-approval. I just woke up, went to work, wrote it down. Like, I'm going to go to the place today and see if they approve me. And they approved me that day. Yeah. There was no set, no nothing. I was just like, I'm just going to go see what they say.
I mean, that's the story you told me. Because I was But no, I remember like you telling me. Because me and you had a couple conversations over the like last year where you're like, no, like I want a house. And you're like, and you were telling me like, no, like, because I know you're a journaler. You like journaling things, and you were like a couple of times over the last year you have made it clear like, no, I want a house. And we talked about manifesting. I want to say like last fall, you're like, no, I mean it when I say, Chris, I'm gonna get a house. And I'm like, yeah, girl, me too. And then I never thought about it again for myself.
And then here I come like, oh well, yeah, got a house. So I guess that is a great example of it. Yeah.
So what exactly did you do? So talk us through your steps that you did for your house.
Like the manifestation?
Like your visualization, all of that.
I guess like I had wrote it down. Like having that house was like a plan for a while, but it got off the track. Like I wanted a home since 2018. I was like, okay, it's me journey. I got to figure it out. Like, so I started steps back then, but I kept on getting sidetracked and knocked off of my track. And then I just kept on having that goal. Like each year, a new house was on my vision board. I was on vision boards for a while, but each year that was my goal. And I just I had to write it down, but I never write it and look over it and think about it. I write it down, and I'm a daydreamer. So I would daydream about getting this house, but I never made steps to do it. But every now and then I'll write down little things I need to do to get to that goal, not knowing that I was going to get there, not knowing when I was going to get there. I was just doing little steps to get there. So then I started okay, so how you going to get your credit score up to get there? So this is the next goal. I was taking baby steps to get to my goal. I think that's the only way I can get there. And also all that time visualizing the ending.
Yeah. I think
because if I have so much on me, so much other stuff going on, if I don't write stuff down and see it, it just it's all clutter. Because I usually get to my ending goals without me even knowing that I was doing it. And I guess it's because I always check back in of stuff I write down. I mean, this is bad, but I wanted a kid. I got my kid. Little stuff I wanted, I got it. So it's just I always either visualize it like a daydream in the universe. It's just always a shift to that, what I want, or I'm writing it down. I never wrote down I want a kid, but I knew in my head I wanted a kid. Even though when it happened, I was acting I was kind of shocked it actually happened, but it's not nothing I didn't want.
I don't think you want me to go into the conversation.
No, I don't.
Oh, yeah, okay. But you manifested that. You manifested.
Yeah, and I even manifested getting proposed to and all of that too. I was like, this I seen him and I was like, I want to marry him. Yeah. And I was like, and we gonna get there, and I want to spend this life with him. So I mean, he probably seen me and wanted the same thing, but it's just different things. Like, if I put my mind to it and it's something I want to do, and it's like my daydreams all the time, I usually get there. But sometimes I get knocked off. Sometimes it takes me a while. It doesn't take like a short period. It may seem like a short period to you, but with the house thing, but that's been on my mind since 2018.
Yeah, but you also said you stopped, like you weren't active.
No,
but the minute you became active again, like it happened quickly.
That's the thing. When I want something really bad and I see that, like when I have that feeling like I gotta get it, it usually does come fast.
Yeah.
But I need to have that motivation all the time.
I feel like for me, when it comes to things like jobs, it's very easy for me to manifest stuff like that. Like when I decide like I want to travel, I can make that happen. When I decide I want a new job, I can make that happen. Like, you know, like when I first moved to Atlanta, I was going to grad school, blah, blah, blah. And it took me 7 months to get a job. And then I got real serious about like, no, this is what I want. This is what's going to happen. And within like a 2-year time period, I went through 3 jobs. And I went through manifesting $25,000 more in my pay in that 2-year period. And I did it slowly. At first, I was just like, I need a job in my field. I need a job in my field at a master's level, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I was able to get this job. And even that specific job, I was like, no, I want to keep in forensics and blah, blah, blah. And I actually went for an interview for another job. And the person who ended up being my boss, it was like a 6-person interview. And I wasn't specific. I was just like, no, I want a job in this field. And I had a couple of different interviews. So I was like, I don't care. Give me one of these jobs. That's kind of how I manifested. Like, give me one of these jobs, have it in this field, and made it be a job where I can network. And what ended up happening is I didn't get that job. But one of the people that was in that interview, was like 5-6 people in that interview, called me, was like, hey, look, I have another job. It's in forensics. You are going to be perfect for that job. I won't even have to interview you. If you say you want that job, I'll send your stuff to HR now. And that's how I ended up getting that job. And then I didn't like that job. And around month 10 of that job, I was like, no, I want a new job. And I got real serious about manifesting. I got real serious about, so writing things down does not work for me. And I think that's one of those things with not just manifestation, with everything. I tell this to my clients all the time. Do what works for you.
Yeah.
You know, don't worry if Halle Berry said this is how she did it and this is how it worked for her. That might not work for you. Do what feels comfortable to your spirit and do what feels comfortable to you and what works for you. So for me, same thing. I had another friend who also writing stuff down worked for her. Writing stuff down never did anything for me. But also, I think I get too in my head when I write. I'm not a person that can just write free flowing. And so, but I can visualize free flowing. And so I would take quiet time. And I would talk to my fiance at the time, and I would be like, hey, I need you to take the baby. And he knew, like 2-3 times a week, like, Ress needs her quiet time. And he would take the baby, and him and the baby go pick up some food. Or him and the baby go downstairs and start cooking. And I would, like, sit down in the middle of the bed or in the middle of the floor, and I would just have, like, a whole 20-30 minute session of visualizing what I want. And when it came to jobs, a lot of times I was like, I want to be making more money. And this is what's going to feel like. I'll be able to afford this. I'll be able to buy this and not have to worry. I will be able to do this and it not be a stressor on me because I have the money and the income to do that. And then I will also visualize things that I wanted. Like I want to have my own office again. Because my first job outside of grad school, the last job I had before I went to grad school, I had my own office. It was a nice office. So when I went to grad school, then I graduated, I got a job where it was like a big room and it was like 8 of us in there. And matter of fact, I ended up getting moved to like what was really should have been like a hallway that they put like 5 offices in. Not offices,
I remember you was talking about that,
Yeah. So I was like, no, I want to have my own office again. I want to, and I would visualize things like that. And so the next job I got, when I got really tired of my other job, I literally was like, nope, I'm going to put it out in the universe that I want a new job and I'm going to get one. And that's what happened. I put it out there. Somebody that knew me from work, from different meetings I went to, was like, hey, I heard you're looking for a job. We're about to have like 4 positions available. If you want it, you got it. Like you have to do an interview as a formality, but the job is yours. And I got that job, and then I got tired of that job. Because again, not just with men do I get up and leave. When I'm done with stuff, I just leave. Like I just I'm such a big believer in like once I'm done, I'm done. I'm not about to. We're not about to sit here and play these games.
Right.
So when I got to that job and I got sick of that job, same thing. I was like, you know what? I'm done. I can't keep doing this. Y'all not gonna keep disrespecting me in my field. You're not gonna keep disrespecting my intelligence, my professional opinion. And I was like, I'm good. And with that one, I specifically remember being like, I need to be making at least $10,000 more than what I'm making at the second job. And between that and that first job, like now we're talking about $23,000 more. And then when I got that job, I then got an increase like 6 months in. I got a couple $1,000s more a year. And same thing, I would take quiet time and I would do it a couple times a week where I would just visualize. And when I visualize, I make sure I have that feeling that I want to have when I'm there. I think that's a big part of it. And by the way, guys, we are not experts. We just tell you what worked for us.
Yes.
Let me put that out there before you send me an angry letter about how it did not work. You was trying to get, Jay-Z, and you ended up with Bow Wow. That's not my problem. But yeah, so like I would just sit and I would be like, yes, I want my own office again. I want a beautiful skyline view in my office. I want to be able to look out my window and feel peace when I'm in this office. I want a title that is more important than my current title. That was just honestly a thing I wanted at the time. And I manifested the type of work environment I want. I said, this is I should have been more specific now that I'm there, but we're not going to go into that. But I did say specifically, like, I want a boss I feel close with. I feel like I can be honest with, and is honest with me. I want coworkers where we can hang outside of work and it doesn't feel forced, and we like each other and we help each other, not only in the office but outside of the office. And that was important to me, not because I'm still like team, they are your coworkers. Like there's certain things I still believe. Like I don't care how cool y'all are, that's your coworker. But I am in Atlanta. I'm not from Atlanta. I don't have family in Atlanta. So it was big to me that I had people that, if I did want to get dinner, I could get dinner with. Or if I do want to get lunch with on our lunch break, I could. And I was able to manifest that. I was only looking for a job for about 2 months when I got my current position. And it's going to be 3 years and like 6 months. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be 3 years at this position in 6 months. But it took 2 months and the same thing happened. And one of the things I was very specific on is that I was like, and I don't want it to be a struggle. I do not want it to be a struggle for me to have this job. I want a job that they are like, you are so perfect for this position. And the same thing happened, that I put it out there that I was looking for work, and I got a call. One of my homegirls worked there, and they're like, yo, I let the boss know you were looking for work, and she said to let you know, like, she will personally send you an email the minute we post this position. She will personally make sure that if your application doesn't get through, the computer part, because a lot of times nowadays HR isn't looking at your stuff. First, it gets sent through a computer generator. You have to pass the computer generator before your stuff gets sent to HR. The HR sends the list to the boss or whatever. And like my current position, like again, like when I interviewed, I had 2 friends that worked there. And like straight up called me and was like, they said that you were the best candidate they interviewed out of everybody. And my position now, we had an interview process recently, and my boss actually lets us, because it's like 3-4 rounds to get to my position. You have to interview so many times. But the first round, she lets coworkers interview with her. And you interview with her and like 2 or 3 of my coworkers. And she said that like one of my homegirls, she was just like, yeah, they said like when you interviewed, there was like everybody said that they just stopped writing at some point and went hire her. And I was so concerned because In our field, it's mostly women. Men are starting to become more and more of a factor. And unfortunately, when you're in a field that's dominated by women, when men apply for jobs, companies like to hire them because they're such a minority in the field.
Yeah.
And especially when we were talking about mental health and stuff, a lot of times men want male counselors. Men want, especially young men, they want to see young men. They want to be mentored by men. They want their therapist to be a man. They think they understand them better, whatever. And I understand that, no problem with that. And so when I got to the last round, my boss was no longer a factor. Like, it was a big boss, okay, who was interviewing me. And I found out I was interviewing against 2 men. I was the only female that made this round. And I remember feeling real nervous because I know how it is in the field. Especially if it's a team that don't have a lot of men on it, even when you're the best, they will kick you out for a man. I feel like my nurses can understand this because I have a friend that's a nurse, and that was big she had to deal with. That when men come in the field as male nurses, they got paid more, they got more shifts, stuff like that. Because they're like, but if we get a man, they can do, the lifting by themselves instead of using 2 nurses to do this, and they blah blah blah. Just a whole bunch of misogynistic thinking. And I remember wearing what are those things called? A waist belt, not a waist belt, a waist trainer, and a really great bra. I will put that on. When I did that last interview, I made sure I was looking great because the guy who interviewed me was a man. So I definitely was like, well. First of all, let me distract you a little bit. I won't even lie. I did. But also, I remember like manifesting as I was waiting in the, like, up until that point, but also as I was waiting to do the final interview, while I was waiting in the like waiting area. And I remember sitting there and saying and just visualizing how this interview was going to go. And I remember visualizing like, this is going to be a great conversation. And I remember when the secretary came to get me to go upstairs, she was like, "Are you okay?" Because while I was sitting there, I had my eyes closed and I was like smiling to myself. And I was like moving my head around while I was having this whole visualization because I like felt that. Like I felt that shit. Where I was like, yes, it's going to be great. And he's going to be like, oh my gosh, you're so charming and you're so smart.
So you're just smiling at your own daydream.
Yeah. So when she came to get me, she was like, ma'am. I was like, hi. She's like, okay. You good? Okay. I'm about to walk you up for an interview. You need a second? I was like, oh, girl, I'm good. And it took literally, by the time I drove back to my home, I had the offer.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So I definitely think it works. Now, for me, when it comes to my love life, I can't manifest shit. And I just don't. I don't even try. I think when I was younger, I tried before. And I think that's really just more of a personal thing. And I just think that's a lesson in my life. The universe is always, when it comes to my life, like, oh, bitch, you thought. That's how the universe treats me every time.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. You thought, honey. No, you got to learn lessons. But when it comes to like job, when it comes to like whenever I want to travel, same thing. I've always been able to like usually manifest that if I put my mind to it. If I'm like, you know what? I want to go here. I really want to do this. If I have the time, I can usually be like, make money appear. And money will appear.
Right.
I can usually be like, I really want someone to go with me. And someone will pop up and just be like, yeah, girl, I want to go. You didn't tell me. I want to go. And then boom. So that has been a thing. But yeah, when it comes to my love life, I leave it alone. My friend did send me a book. I don't know if I ever sent this to you. It's called Pussy Wit. Did I send this to you? So it's a book on how to manifest like a mate and how to get them to do whatever you want.
Wow.
Yeah. So she uses it. She swears it works. I read some of it and it didn't sit right with my spirit. And that's not to say like I think the book is wrong or whatever. It just didn't sit with me. And I think the reason it didn't sit with me is because like the way that the book was worded and some of the things it did, I personally just felt odd because I knew I wouldn't want a person to do that to me. Yeah. And I knew when it came to my love life, I was like, no, at least when I think about my love life now, I'm like, send me someone who loves me because they love me, not because I asked you guys, not because
I want to give you a natural feeling, not because, yeah.
Yeah. Not because I
And it's
asked them
not natural
first.
love. I don't really want it. Or if you're doing it, or that I had to like make you. No, I don't want none of that.
Yeah, yeah. Like whenever I like hear about people who are like getting readings on love lives and all this stuff, that I'm cool with. Like, you want to know. But whenever I hear people like, ooh, I wonder if there's a spell I can do to make someone fall in love with me, I'm like, hold on, girl, slow your roll, slow your roll. Because the way I look at it, I'm just like, you deserve someone that just is, that you don't have to ask someone to put under a trance to love you. That's what you deserve. You deserve someone that you don't have to put all of this emotional manipulation into to wanting to be with you.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and you should want that for yourself, you know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I get loving someone so much and just wishing they would love you back. But you know what? I don't know if this is an age. I don't even think it's an age. Yeah, it might be an age thing. Because, you know, I will say there was one person when I was young that I was just so in love with. And I remember just wanting him to love me back consistently. Because he would do that. I love you so much and so intensely stuff. And then it would just cool. And then it would come back and it was just cool. And I'm like, no, just let it stay. Let's just let it stay because mine stays. So maybe it's an age thing. Maybe that's a thing we do when we're younger and it just takes time to grow. But now I definitely, if anybody's going through that, if anybody is ever like, oh, I just want them to love you, you deserve better. F them.
Yeah.
You deserve somebody. You are so amazing, and you deserve someone that's going to look at you like you're the most amazing thing in the world with no reservations. You deserve somebody that when they meet you are like, yo, this is it. That when they meet you, they're like, yo, they're amazing. You do not need to be with someone who meets you and needs a year to figure out, I mean,
are you the one?
But yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm being harsh by saying you have to know you're the one right away, but I definitely don't think, like, at least for me, what I want for myself is I don't want to be with someone that takes a year to figure out if they love me. I don't want to be with someone, I agree with you, that takes a long time to figure out if they want to be with me or is wavering if they're unsure about me. That's not what I ask for. That's not. I like passionate, intense loves, and
exactly.
I personally believe none of us deserve any half-ass shit.
And it shouldn't take a year. It shouldn't take all that time. You know?
Yeah. So I'm a personal believer that if you want to manifest love, manifest what you want from a person instead of focusing on that person, on a specific person. Being like, I want a person who is loving. Send me someone who loves me so much. Send me someone who's so caring. Send me someone that anticipates my needs, blah, blah, blah. Instead of being like, please send me Johnny. I know he is married to that woman, but I feel like he shouldn't be. Please send me Johnny. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. You don't know who that woman ancestors are.
Right.
Open Pandora's box and Johnny gonna put you through the ringer. Leave Johnny.
You ain't gonna want it. He ain't with you for a reason.
Look, bro. And on a side note though, I remember there was this guy, you already know who I'm talking about, who like I really, really loved. And we just had this on and off in this intense, and we really were trauma bonded more than anything. But I didn't realize it at the time. And I remember like we ended stuff, I got engaged, and then he got engaged. And I ended my engagement, but he got married. And I remember being so heartbroken. And I remember just being like, really? Also because he married my doppelganger, so that also hurt me because I was like, so really? Like, really? You could marry me, but you couldn't marry my great value version. Really, nigga? But we're gonna side skip that. And I don't mean that to diss her. She's a beautiful woman. If she's anything like me, I know she's amazing. But I say that to say it was someone who was very much like me, but also very much not. That's all I meant by that. Because she's absolutely gorgeous girl. But anyways, I say all that to say, going back to the Johnny situation, where that man put that woman through the ringer. Like, when I say put that woman through the ringer. And it wasn't until I was much older that I was able to stop and look back at that situation, because I was young. But when I was older, I looked back at that situation. I was like, remember all those times you cried? And you're like, I love him so much. And I just don't understand. And maybe in the next life we can be butterflies and we reunite. No. And now I am so happy that somebody else took that. I wish she didn't have to. I wish none of us had to. And luckily, you know, she was able to get away from him too. Girl, I hope you took him for everything he got. I hope you up here living off some spouse support in Cancun right now, girl. Get yours. Because the problem wasn't us. It was definitely and still is him. But
yes.
I say that all to say sometimes, especially when it comes to love situations, we have situations that hurt us and we're like, why them? Why not? What happened? And you don't even understand how many times it's probably the universe being like, or your ancestors being like, baby girl or baby boy, I'm not even gonna let you go through that.
Yes, I'm gonna stop you before you even get started. Yes.
Your ancestors might be like, look, she gonna go through that or he gonna go through that, and it's gonna break their heart, but they're gonna come back stronger and more resilient. And we let you go through that, you're gonna end up in jail, and that's the end of our story. Okay? So
so that's not.
Yeah. So yes, again, definitely, I believe general manifestation when it comes to things like love helps. And even maybe sometimes with jobs, I've always found that with jobs, it was easier for me when I manifest what I wanted versus like, I want this title.
Job. Yeah.
Versus I want this title. But now I will say I have generated a very specific income. When out to me right now, I don't know, do you have any specific books, or you just kind of read stuff on Instagram, or as people tell you, or you don't really remember the sources?
I don't remember any sources. I kind of like Instagram or those people tell me, and then I research, but I never really read a lot of books.
Yeah, I have read a couple. I just can't remember. I feel like I've definitely read The Secret. I think everybody kind of starts off there. There's a guy that's like Abraham Hicks, I think his name. He's a guy that, like, when you talk about manifestation and law of attraction, he's like the father of it. Like, he's the first person that came to mind. And I've listened to a couple of his lectures and stuff like that. But there's none that I specifically stick to. I'm just a big believer in doing what works for me, like what aligns with my spirit and what feels good. But I do know from the things I remember, things that have always stuck out to me is, one, be clear about what you want. Even with myself, I think I've said this one earlier, like there's been times I have not been clear, and it's like I get some of it, but a whole bunch of unintentional stuff comes because I wasn't clear about it.
Yeah.
For example, with that one job, my first job that I manifested when I got here to Atlanta, I was like, I want to be in forensics. I want to have a job with my, blah, blah, blah. And I got it. And I was in forensics, but I didn't talk nothing about what I wanted my coworkers to be like. I didn't talk nothing about what I wanted my caseload to be like. I didn't talk about a lot of stuff that when I got there, I was like, oh, okay, so I did get this, but I forgot all this other stuff comes with it, and I don't like this stuff.
That's why you have to be clear, you were saying.
Yes. So I definitely think if you are a journaler, to write down, think about all of the stuff you want and all the stuff you don't want, and write it down and be clear. Especially when visualizing, trying to be clear, specific about what you want. Of course, everything's going to come with things we don't know, but I think the clearer you are, the better.
Yeah, I agree.
Second, be clear about the feeling that you want. For me, I know feelings are a big part of manifestation for me. Feeling it as I'm visualizing, knowing what type of feeling I want to come. I feel like that's always been big for me. I don't know if that's a big thing for you.
Like the feelings, yeah. The feelings are like a big thing for me. Like I'm trying to, like, I think it's like back to where I'm like daydreaming, and like it's just the feeling that I want to feel, and I try to make that feeling a reality. I guess. So yeah, it's a big thing for me too.
I mean, to me, the whole visualization is just structured daydreaming. Yeah, it's just structured daydreaming. It's daydreaming, but you have some like goals set in mind. So like, this is definitely how I want this to go in my head. Another one is practicing like gratitude. It's a big part of it. I feel like, at least for me, especially when I'm trying to reach it, and I want it to go faster, I think having a abundance mindset and even when I'm practicing it and like, let's say I'm trying to visualize a trip to Thailand, right? And I'm like, I need the money. I don't have the money. I want to stay somewhere beautiful. I don't want to have money when I'm there to go shopping, blah, blah. And I'm just trying to practice gratitude. And then one of my homegirls goes, girl, you know, I just won a trip to Thailand. I'm going to take this bum dude with me. You know, the dude that don't pay half a rent and make me pay for all my meals. I'm going to take him. And instead of being like, oh, that's what I was asking for. But not letting yourself get there, just still being like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome, and using that as, and so now I know it can happen to me, and being happy for that person, and genuinely not letting that stop your mindset, and still putting it out in a positive way, and not letting little things like that sidetrack you or dampen your spirit. I feel like, at least for me, that's been extremely important.
I think it's because that can get you off the track all the way, comparing, like, let their story be their story. It can motivate you for more, but not like, oh, I wanted that, like you said. So, yeah.
And having just, for me, a big part is just having like an abundance mindset. Like, it's going to happen. Even if I'm like, dang, I was hoping it happened by now. Like, keep it in mind. Like, no, it's going to happen. And just staying positive, being positive about it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think another thing is making sure you address any limiting beliefs that you have. And what I mean by that is, like, for some of us, we have beliefs about ourselves that stops us from attaining certain things. And so sometimes people will like try to manifest something, and then later throughout their week, they'll have a feeling that's like, man, I don't deserve this. I'm not even qualified for this, bruh. They don't even pay people that much. Like, you have to address that before you start manifesting. So that way, even if those thoughts, because sometimes thoughts come in that are intrusive that we do not try to have come in, they just come in. But like, when you're trying to manifest, I really believe by understanding what your limited beliefs are and already preparing yourself up, and when that happens, I'm gonna put a stop to that. So when I am like, you know, I want to go to Thailand, and it comes up in my mind like, you can't even save to go out to, you know, Jersey. What you mean you go? I can just automatically be like, no, we not. I'm not thinking about that, because I can. If I put my mind to it, I could. And I'm going to put my mind on Thailand. Guess what? It's going to happen. Learning how to stop yourself when those thoughts come.
For the negative thoughts, yeah.
Yeah. Also, of course, trusting the process. Understand that it is a process. I feel like I've definitely come across people who are like, nah, I tried that meditation stuff, and I tried that law of attraction stuff, and like I didn't think nothing happened, so I feel like it's not real. I understand it's a process.
Yeah, it's not gonna be an overnight thing.
Yeah. And honestly, I think when you put too much on, like, I've been doing this for a whole month or a whole year, and it hasn't happened, you create stress, and it kind of seeks, or it kind of plants seeds of distrust in the process. And I think the more and more you do that, the more and more you allow those thoughts of like, it should have happened by now, the more and more it's going to slowly creep up on you to stop doing it, to stop believing it, to stop being positive about it.
Yeah. It's going to take away from it, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think it takes away. And then, so I always hear people saying, like, raise your vibes and have positive vibes, raise your, like, vibrations and stuff, your energy. I don't really know what to say on that. I've read a lot on energy and energy work. I just don't feel like I know how to put it into words.
Yeah, I don't think I do either.
Yeah, but that's something I know people always say. And I think to me, it just goes back to that whole being aware of what your thoughts are, understanding that what you think you attract. And so for me, the whole raising your energy thing is more about protecting your thoughts, thinking on positive things. And that's not to say we won't have negative thoughts that come sometimes. You have to be positive all the time. I think people who say you have to be positive all the time, you are just forcing you're shoving things under the rug that's eventually going to come out, and it usually comes out in a more explosive way. Yeah, but handle it in a mature way. Like, let yourself have those feelings and then go back to being like, okay, you know what? I thought about those. I let myself explore those feelings, but now I'm back on my bullshit. We're going to do this. This is going to happen. I'm going to be positive.
Yeah. That's the only way to be when you're trying to manifest.
Yeah. And I think another important thing is also looking for the signs and trusting in signs that you get from the universe. I think that a lot of times the universe does give us little signs. And I think if you did not grow up with like vibes, energies, law of attraction type of environment and lifestyle, sometimes you can feel silly by saying, yes, the universe sent me a sign, because it sounds silly in your head if you're not used to those concepts and those principles. And I think another key point to keep in mind with this is, just detach from the outcome. I think when you just trust that it's going to happen, instead of being so concerned with like, okay, now when is it going to happen? It's going to happen this way. Detach yourself from the outcome. I feel like at least for me, that has been one of the most important things.
Yeah.
Put it out into the universe. When you go into your moments of like meditation and you want to think about it and visualizing, and then let it go. At least for me, don't obsess over it. Don't constantly have it wavering on your mind. Set aside personal time for it, and then when you're outside that personal time, let it go, because you trust the process. You don't have to obsess over something when you trust that it's going to happen.
That's true. I think that's for me. I just knew it was going to happen for me, so it wasn't like something I dwelled on. I was like, it's going to happen, even with the negative parts of trying to get home, but I just had to make it happen. So I think that's a good idea. I mean, a good thing to follow.
I agree. And it worked out so good for you. Like, y'all, when I tell y'all, her home process was crazy. Like, because again, like, we talked about it, and a couple times over like the course of a couple months, she was like, yo, I want this to happen. Hey guys, this is Ress, and we are taking a quick break so I can talk to you guys about the Overlooked podcast. The Overlooked podcast is a true crime podcast where I go over the cases of missing people of color. I specifically go over cases that have little media coverage. I go over cases that are still not been solved and the individual is still missing. On this podcast, you'll hear me talk about cases that you probably never heard of. I try to post clips from news sources and family member interviews, and we try to ask some of the questions that the media still hasn't answered, that the police still have not answered. And of course, as always, we ask that the listeners keep a lookout for this person. If they've seen this person, if they've heard this person's name, if they think they know anything related to the case, that they give a call in to the police station or give a call in to Crime Stoppers. The name of the podcast is called The Overlooked, and you can find it on all major streaming platforms. You can also find us on Instagram at The Overlooked Podcast with 2 T's at the end. Again, that's The Overlooked. Thank you for your time. Process was so quick. It was like over the summertime, she was telling me like, yeah, I think I'm gonna buy a home, and I was like, yeah, girl, me too. I never thought about it again. And then Nique, like you had talked to me a little bit about journaling, and you were obviously already doing your own thing, visualizing and so forth. And you had told me a couple times, like, especially when it came to neighbors, you're like, I'm gonna be out of here. Like, matter of fact, like, no, girl, I'm gonna be out of here. I'm gonna get me a home. And like you said, like, you walked in, of course you did your background work of visualizing and saying and writing down, but then like you went in randomly and you told me, you're like, yeah, I got a home. And I was like, what? You're like, oh yeah, I just, I got this information. I was like, yeah, I want it. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna just go in. You're like, and they approved me, and now I got a home. So I agree. Like,
and then I was like waiting until it to be finalized, and I was like, I'm not gonna think about it. I'm just gonna let it happen.
Yes.
Like, I wasn't even like, yeah.
Because you were like real hush hush about it for a while. I know you had told me, but I think like we were talking about it and you were telling me like you weren't letting people know for real until it happened. And you just kind of trust the process. Like, no, it's gonna happen. When I get my keys, I'll take a picture and let y'all know.
Yeah, I only told like other friends probably a week before, because just like, yeah, I'll just let you know. Like, before I posted it, I wanted to tell close people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can happen, guys. I definitely think so. Let us know, guys. Let us know in the comments and the DMs how, especially if you guys got some good tips, I will go ahead and post them. What are some manifestation tips you guys have used that have worked for you guys? Do you guys believe in it at all? Or are you like, no, that don't work? I put my hand on my Bible and that's it. So let us know in the comments. As always, guys, we will be back with a new episode next Thursday.
Yes.
Definitely, we're trying to get to 500 people by the end of this week. I think we're at like 487. So share our content, like our content. Guys, leave reviews on Apple Podcasts, please. You guys always send us so many DMs throughout the week, and I appreciate them so much. You guys are so funny. You guys are so funny. You guys crack me up in the comments. You guys crack me up in the DMs. But it would be greatly appreciated for stats and for the way that Apple Podcasts and Spotify, the way that they share our stuff, even Instagram, the way that they give our content to new people who are unaware of our page, are unaware of our podcast, is based on things like likes, on like sharing our stuff, on like saving our stuff, and of course on reviews. So always we appreciate when you guys tell us you like the episode, or you give us a funny comment, or you're like, girl, I just went through this. But if you could also put that in the reviews, that would be great. And again, we want to reach 500 followers on Instagram by the end of this week, so share our page and definitely recommend us to friends, family, or whoever you think might enjoy the podcast. Again, thanks you guys for listening. We'll be back with a new episode next Thursday. You guys have a good one.